welcome to Twin Talk. This is Angie, and I'm here with my sister Joy. And today we're going to be discussing the book Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance. This is a memoir of a family and culture in crisis. It was written in June of 2016. It's 264 pages, and if you want to listen to this on Audible, it is 6 hours and 50 minutes on Audible. And Joy, before we begin, just to let everyone know, we've just decided that we are in hillbilly hell right now.
Yes,
because,
we are.
As always, technology is not our friend. We've been trying to get our microphone set up, our headphones, and we were unsuccessful. So if the quality's not that great, we apologize, but we'll make it the best. We'll do the best we can. Okay, so Joy, how did you discover the book? I'm just curious.
So this book came up as a suggestion on Audible based on books I had read in the past, and it looked interesting. It looked like something I would want to read, and I don't know why I just put it on the back burner, and I never ended up reading it.
Okay, so the way I heard about it was just recently, former President Trump, he announced his new running mate, and he said it's J.D. Vance. Well, I'm going to be completely honest here. I had never heard of him, all right? I Googled him, probably like millions of other people did. I saw a reference to this book, and I thought, okay, what a great way to get to find out about somebody, to learn about somebody, is to read a book they've written, right?
Right.
And so I went into Audible in your library, and guess what? There it was. It was in your library. And so I thought, wow, Joy and I definitely have the same taste and the same interest, and there it was.
Right, and one thing I want to add to that was when Trump did announce his new running mate, I said, where have I heard that name? That name sounds familiar. How do I know that name? Yeah. And then they had mentioned he had written that his memoir was Hillbilly Elegy, and I was like, oh, that's right, I saw his name on the book. And so I'm the same with you. Even though I feel like I keep up with politics pretty much on a daily basis, I did not recognize his name, so apparently I'm not as current as I thought I was.
Okay, so I guess I'm the bad twin here, because I don't keep up with politics. I don't watch the news. But still.
That makes you the smart twin.
Okay, but still.
Because it brings you down.
Gotcha. But what the surprising thing to me was, I thought when he announced his running mate, it'd be someone I'd at least heard of.
Right.
And I've never heard of J.D. Vance. So
apparently he was a senator or congressman.
He was something. Yeah, he was. He had an
and I didn't even
official.
know that.
This shows you how much we know about him. We don't know. The point I want to make, though, for people who are listening to this podcast, is we're not here to discuss Trump or his running mate or politics. We're just here to discuss this guy's book.
Yeah, and his memoir.
Yeah, the fact that he is running for vice president, I do want to know who he is as a person, and I want to know what he stands for. So this is a great way to do that. So if you want to go ahead, I do have the summary that was in Audible. If you want to go ahead and read that.
From a former Marine and Yale Law School graduate, a powerful account of growing up in a poor Rust Belt town that offers a broader, probing look at the struggles of America's white working class. Hillbilly Elegy is a passionate and personal analysis of a culture in crisis, that of white working class Americans. The decline of this group, a demographic of our country that has been slowly disintegrating over 40 years, has been reported on with growing frequency and alarm, but has never before been written about as searingly from the inside. J.D. Vance tells the true story of what a social, regional, and class decline feels like when you were born with it hung around your neck. The Vance family story begins hopefully in post-war America. J.D.'s grandparents were dirt poor and in love, and moved north from Kentucky's Appalachia region to Ohio in the hopes of escaping the dreadful poverty around them. They raised a middle school family, and eventually their grandchild, the author, would graduate from Yale Law School, a conventional marker of their success in achieving generational upward mobility. But as the family saga of Hillbilly Elegy plays out, we learn that this is only the short, superficial version. Vance's grandparents, his aunt, his uncle, his sister, and most of all his mother struggled profoundly with the demands of their new middle-class life and were never able to fully escape the legacy of abuse, alcoholism, poverty, and trauma so characteristic of their part of America. Vance piercingly shows how he himself still carries around the demons of their chaotic family history. A deeply moving memoir with its share of humor and vividly colorful figures, Hillbilly Elegy is the story of how upward mobility really feels. And it is an urgent and troubling meditation on the loss of the American dream for a large segment of this country.
Okay, and I got to apologize for having you read that really long summary. But today, when I was going over the outline, I tried several times to cut some of that out and to shorten it up, but everything in it was important to know. So that's why I had you read that full summary there. So what was your overall impression of the book? What did you think?
I loved it. I thought it was great. And one reason that I really appreciate the book is we are white middle-class people, and everything he said in the book resonated with me because we've either seen it or been there. You know, we're familiar with the way he thinks. We're familiar with the type of people who he grew up with. Have you ever read a book about a white man's struggle? I mean, here in the United States, not immigrants like Angela's Ashes, I think about them, but they come over from Ireland.
Yeah, you know, the only thing that comes to mind is like Grapes of Wrath. At times, the economy was really bad, like, you know, when people were struggling.
During the Great Depression.
Yeah, so people didn't have work and had to move to California.
So I guess I should add to that, I guess, more in a current time period.
Yes.
I haven't read something like this that talks about the struggle of the white, middle, working class that's more current.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
I feel like, for the most part, we hear about struggles of other people, other races, other cultures. In this book, what I really like about it is it does make you think about social class and how the system works within both classes. When I say that, I'm talking about poor and rich. And well, middle class as well. So he gives us an inside look into both worlds. He knows what it's like to be extremely poor. He knows what it's like to be middle class because he kind of advanced to that at one point. And now that he's in the upper, echelons, is that the correct word?
I guess so.
Yeah, now that he's up running for vice president, I feel like he's kind of made it to the upper levels of society. So he's been
and I'm
in
not
both
sure,
worlds.
but wasn't he very successful in business? Is he a millionaire?
I honestly don't know what his financial state is. I have no idea.
I feel like he was very successful in business and that he made a lot of money, but I could be wrong. I'll research that. So to go with what you're saying, I do feel like he's experienced poverty, middle class, and wealth.
Yes, I do agree. And in the book, he doesn't really go into past when he graduated law school. No, he doesn't go much further than that.
Right. This book basically ends with him accepting a job with a law firm, and then that's where it ends. Because it was written in 2016, right?
So I don't know about you. Yes, so I don't know about you, but I had a lot of aha moments in this book.
Yes, I did too.
So there's a lot of things in my life that I felt to be true, but I never really knew how to articulate them. And in his book, I love him. He does not mince words.
No.
And he just states it as he sees it. And I have to say, most of the time, I agreed with pretty much everything he said.
Yeah, I think that's another reason I liked it, because everything he said, I'm like, that's exactly what I think. That's exactly how I feel. But he's the first one to actually write it down and articulate it. Maybe not the first, but the first I've read.
Right. So we're going to discuss just some highlights from the books. His mother was a huge part of his life, as well as his grandparents. So, he had a really rough childhood. His mom was an addict. It seemed like she was with a different man every few months. His grandparents, they had very rough upbringing. So their way of dealing with things a lot of time was to fight. You know what? Well, now I will say that his grandma would say, well, there's only certain times you should fight. But at the same time,
physical. But yeah, he even talks about this, how his wife Usha taught him how to communicate, because his way was to yell and scream or shut down, and she's like, let's be adults and just talk it out or whatever.
What I'm saying is, at an early age, he was kind of taught that a lot of times the way they settle conflict was through fighting. And when we say fighting, we're talking about physical fighting. And one part of the book that kind of really surprised me was his grandmother was showing him how to take a punch, how to deliver a punch, and it was always like for a good cause.
She sounded
so
tough.
Yes.
She sounded very tough.
Yes.
And she always had a gun, and of course she cussed like a sailor, but he said she was a Christian, so she was a very interesting character.
She was very interesting, and like he would describe, like they would be in the car, he and his sister and the grandma and his mom, the kids in the back seat being annoying, and they just might turn around and just slap them, They just kind of got slapped around and kind of hit a lot. He said there'd be arms flailing. That's the impression I got when he was talking about.
we grew up getting spankings and
Yeah.
things. We've had our fair share of fly swatters and leather
Yes,
belts and things like
and
that.
I'm not saying I'm against spanking and things like
Right.
that, but it sounded to me like
It was just part
that
of
was
our
that
life.
was a way
that
of
was
life.
rare. It was rare for us to get spanked.
It was
we
just
and
a-
we deserved it when we got it.
Oh,
but
yeah.
it sounded like just an everyday part of life for them.
But if you read his book, you'll find out real quick he had a horrible home life. You know, his mother was very unstable in her relationships.
I think that's a key word, unstable. He had a very unstable home, unstable childhood.
And this part really broke my heart. And as you, as a teacher, I really felt like this was probably eye-opening to you. He said that bell was getting ready to ring to go home for the day. The other kids were all happy and chatting and getting their stuff together, and he said he was upset because he did not want to go home. He would look at that clock with dread because he knew it was almost time to go home, and he didn't want to go home.
Yes, and over the years as a teacher, I've had many workshops, and some of them are about poverty, and they point that out. They're like, when everyone else is excited because it's a snow day, they said there's kids who aren't going to get a meal that day. When everyone else is excited, everything's shut down because of COVID, that girl's going to be sexually assaulted again. School is a safe haven for many, many kids of poverty. And every time people get excited that we're out of school for some reason, I think about the abuse that might be going on, the hunger that might be going on. Say what you want to about public schools, but they provide food and a place of safety for a lot of these kids in poverty.
Yeah, so that part of the book was I thought that was so sad, and it was just kind of broke my heart when he said that. But it was also kind of odd to me, like he talked about school being a safe place, but he also talked about how horrible his attendance was.
Right. I think that was different periods of his life.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And that's another marker. I guess I have learned more than I realized from these workshops. Another marker that you know someone has obviously unstable home life and maybe dealing with some poverty is school attendance.
Yeah.
They're always tied together, almost always tied. Every single time I have a child that has horrible attendance, 99.9% of the time they have a horrible home life, very unstable, or there's some type of a migrant family. They move with the crops and things like that.
Right. So he talks extensively about his childhood, about how unstable it was. You know, he never knew what to expect. It was very volatile. There was a lot of screaming, a lot of fighting. So we've touched on that. But then when he's getting ready to graduate high school, he's not sure what he wants to do with his life. And someone, I think it was a family member, like a cousin or something, suggested he go in the Marines. And I don't think at this point he had really given it any thought. Well, that part of the book's real interesting too, because he talks about how the Marines literally changed his life. He said, no one had ever taught me how to balance a checkbook, how to schedule things, how to make priorities, how to make a list, how to keep a calendar,
Even
punctuality.
Discipline, punctuality, even hygiene.
Yes.
How to showering every day and making, just basic things like making your bed. I mean, I understood that the military does all those things, but I didn't realize that they help them with their financial literacy. I didn't know that. So that was good.
So he said that probably more than anything, the Marines totally prepared him. It put him in leadership roles. Like you said, he had to learn discipline. He had to learn respect. He had to learn routine.
And he said
hard work.
Yeah, and he said
and setting goals.
Yes, and he said he felt like if he had gone to college straight out of high school, he would have failed because he wasn't ready to be an adult. He didn't have those skills. See, I always think of it as one or the other. Oh, you're going into the military, and then that's going to be your career. Oh, you're going to college, then you're going to do whatever. I never thought about the military as a stepping stone to college.
Right.
And yes, he said he felt kind of awkward being the older person there, but then he graduates Ohio State in 2 years. Angie, that just put me to shame. He graduated a 4-year college in 2 years. I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead here.
No.
But I'm
that's
like,
the next thing we're going to talk
it took me
about.
almost 5 years because, frankly, I was a bad student and I was more interested in running around with my friends and chasing boys and whatever than studying and really taking. I could have easily done mine in 4 years, you know, and he did his in 2, which is. I just can't even imagine how he pulled that off.
That says a lot to me about his work ethic and things like that. So, okay, so then you had to remind me, we were discussing this book the other day, and I was like, how did he end up at Yale Law School? Can you kind of repeat what you said he said from the book?
So, apparently, he said that he wanted to have money, which we all do, and he said looking back at his childhood, all of the students in his classes that came from families with money, that he noticed their parents were either doctors or lawyers.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And he said he didn't want to mess with blood, so he knew he didn't want to be a doctor.
Right.
So he decided to go into law, which I thought that was interesting because he really had no really good sound reasoning. He just wanted money.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny that he was very transparent through the book.
Which I loved.
Yes, he was very, like, anytime he made a stupid mistake or a bad decision, he was right there admitting it on paper, And so I love that he was like, I had no other reason going to law other than I wanted to be in a profession that made money. And he said, I knew I didn't want to deal with, blood and guts. But it shows you he was just kind of a regular guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, from what I remember, was he had a friend who had a cousin who had just graduated law school. Okay, It was like a basic, not an Ivy League school or anything. And they said, "Oh, how's it going?" She said, "Well, I'm waiting tables. I can't get a job."
Oh,
even though she had a law degree. So, I guess from what I could tell from this book was, you had to go at that point in time. You had to go to a pretty prestigious law school to be guaranteed a job.
So one of the most interesting parts of the book to me was his experience at Yale. So right off the bat, he'll tell you felt like a fish out of water. He said he felt like he didn't belong. And he said that he was what was the word he used in the book? I think he said an anomaly or something like that.
Maybe, I don't remember.
He said that the other students there, they were all just so... they were amazed with him, the fact that he was come from a middle-class background, and to them, they would make comments like, oh, like people that are surgeons and just what we would consider really high professionals, like engineers, did not make much money. And he said even though they knew they would all be getting six-figure salaries someday, they were worried that wasn't going to be enough money.
So that wasn't an eye-opening moment to me, because around here in this middle-class area where we live in Arkansas, I have several students, their dad's a surgeon, their mom's I have one that her mom's an OBGYN. I've got several that their parents are lawyers or whatever. To me, I'm like, oh wow, that's awesome. That's kind of upper class, and that's super successful.
Right.
But these people at these Ivy League colleges kind of look at that as, do they look down their nose?
It's
at
almost
those?
like they looked at someone that was a surgeon or an engineer. They were middle class, and I was like, wow.
See, I never thought of it that way. So
I guess their parents must be CEOs of large companies or something.
I guess so, and you're right. And that's another thing that was eye-opening to me, that even though they could make six figures right out of the starting gate, they didn't know if it would be enough.
Right.
Wow.
So just goes
if
to show
I made
your
six
perspective.
figures a year, and see, this is perspective, I'd be like, wow, I could easily build that house I want. I could easily have everything paid off. I could easily travel and go. I mean, I'm not saying I don't get to now, but a little bit more extensive. To me,
But
six figures is awesome.
I look at it as like, I feel like in my life, most of the time, my struggle is money. There's never enough money.
Right.
And I feel like a six-figure job, which I know other people would argue this, you spend what you make. But I feel like if I had six figures in my life, we would be living pretty high on the hog, as we say here in the South. But anyway, that was so interesting to me how he gave the perspectives of all the students he was around, because a lot of them were wealthy. The one thing he said that really got to me was he could not get past the thought that he didn't belong there. And he just struggled with that. And he was at a gas station one day, and he was getting gas, and he had on a sweatshirt that said Yale on it. And a lady said, oh, I have a son or a daughter or someone that goes to Yale.
Actually, she had the sweatshirt on that said Yale. Or did you just say that?
Oh, I thought he had
She
one
did, and he said, do you know someone that goes to Yale? And she said, my son or my nephew.
Oh, okay.
And she was really, because he wasn't going to be wearing a Yale shirt. He was still didn't feel worthy of it.
I gotcha.
So he asked her, and when she said, oh, do you go? That's when the struggle came in, if he was going to lie or not.
Like where anyone else would be like, yes, I go to Yale. He literally struggled on whether to say yes or no. He said he felt like if he said yes, he was...
I think he felt like he was going to be pretentious.
Yes.
And like you said, he almost felt that imposter syndrome, like he didn't deserve to be there.
Exactly. Yeah. And if he
And
said
so
no, he was lying.
So
And
he did lie.
He did. And he told her, no, I don't go there.
And I think that's funny, because if I were smart enough to get to Yale,
right.
I think I would be very proud of that fact, except for I would be worried about what people thought of it, because around here, when you say Yale or Harvard, there is a certain connotation that goes with that.
Yeah,
and it's kind of negative.
I hate to say this, and because I'm a Southerner and I'm proud to be a Southerner, but people around here are very prejudiced against a lot of things that they associate with liberals
And the North.
and the North, and they associate Yale and Harvard as
Any
very
Ivy
liberal.
League, any Ivy League school is going to be looked upon as super liberal, and that they stand and teach for everything that we're against, that we don't believe in.
Right. So that part was very interesting to me because I got to be honest with you. I probably never said this to anyone, but I always had this little wish, like a secret wish, and that was to actually go to an Ivy League school.
Really?
And yes, I just think it would be so interesting to actually be in the halls and stay in these places that they have so much history behind them and everything. But so that's why I guess one reason this book really spoke to me.
Okay, here's my secret wish. I don't want to go to one and get a degree from one, but I wouldn't mind sitting in a few classes.
Yeah.
And just
you're right. I think I would
to a lecture, seeing what's like.
Yeah, maybe not actually attend a whole semester there, but maybe get to attend a couple classes.
One thing I wish he would have gone a little more in depth to is how he chose Yale. Now I know. Here's another thing I didn't know, that there are a lot of scholarships for lower income families to go to these Ivy League schools. He said when he did the cost comparison, if he did the scholarship to Yale versus going to a state law school or whatever, didn't he say it was going to cost more to go to the state school than take the grant or whatever he got for Yale?
For some reason, he was able to get more financial aid to go to Yale.
And that's what I like about this book, is that he proved you can do it and get up there. Now, obviously, he's very smart, but he made it.
So when you said he didn't go in depth about why he chose the school, he didn't go into a lot, but he did mention 3 or 4 things about why Yale was a good fit for him. So if you were to go back and listen to the book.
Was it because they had didn't they have classes that were pass-fail and not based on grades?
Yeah, so he said a lot of it was the way the grading was done.
It was structured differently than state schools.
Yes. Toward the end of the book, he talks about social capital, and he kind of gives us this glimpse into that world of the elite, And so these kids, I call them kids, these college students, after they graduate, they basically set up interviews for all of them. And like he says in the book, the school sets up interviews, and like he said, so he says they don't have to go out looking for jobs. They bring these law firms to them, to the student, and all they have to do is sit through an interview and hope they do hope they do,
I didn't know that either. That was new to me.
Right. And so he said, that was one thing that was very eye-opening to him, was he's like, I didn't have to go out and hand resumes out and knock on doors. He said they came to me.
He said I was laughing because he said his idea was you go to the classifieds or whatever. Today it'd be like, on the computer or whatever, you search for the employer, but here they came to you, and that was that was eye-opening to me. I was like, I could just imagine me graduating and all the local high schools coming to me and me sitting down. I was like, oh, that is so fun. But that was eye-opening. Like, really? They come to you? Okay, that's nice.
He said at one point I felt so spoiled. He said I even turned down a couple of interviews. He said I had done so many. He said I was tired of doing them. Yeah. And then, to me, some of the funniest parts of the book, he kept getting invited to these really high-end venues and things to do these interviews. He said, I was so amazed at just my surroundings. He said, I would spend 10 minutes looking at a tablecloth and he said in the setting of the silverware. He said he looked at a champagne glass and he said it looked like someone had Windexed it. So he said, I was so enthralled with my surroundings. He said, I forget why I was even there sometimes.
I know. And that was the funniest. One of the funniest things he said in the book, and I know I'm going to mess this up probably, but you're right. When he's in these fancy restaurants, he'd say, my mind was on, oh my gosh, that glass alone must cost blah, blah, blah. Right. He was focusing on how much stuff costs.
Yes.
And he goes, and that's a middle class mindset. And I thought, oh my gosh, he hit that on the head. Sometimes.
Because that would have been you and I. I'd go, Joy,
because
look at those curtains. Aren't those beautiful?
So for example, this is just an example of what he's talking about. We had a Spanish club party. One of our students' families offered to host it, and they're millionaires.
Right.
Okay, they have like this 10,000 square foot home. Okay, which I actually got lost in. I'm not making that up. When I was looking for a student, I actually got lost. I had to have somebody direct me to the front door. And it's around Christmas, and they've got all this light show set to all this music, gorgeous home, a big mansion. And I'm standing out there helping the students find places to park as they come into our party. Well, then people were driving by and going, your home is beautiful. I love your home. And I was so tempted to go, why, thank you. But I felt so guilty, like, this isn't mine. I could never own this. And I was like, oh, it's not mine, but thank you. And then I started feeling like this imposter, like, I shouldn't even be out here. People are thinking I own this house. Okay, so back to how much stuff cost. So I'm sitting there as I'm waiting for the students to get there, and I'm like taking mental notes so I can tell you and my husband and anybody who will listen. There was a BMW in the driveway. Every vehicle there was like $80,000 to $100,000. Okay, let's just put that. Every single vehicle. I was doing the math in my head of just the vehicles.
Right.
And then I went home and got on Realtor and looked at the house and tried to find the price. So we're so focused on, wow, how much does that cost and how much is that worth? Whereas I think wealthy people maybe don't do that. I don't know. Do they do that?
No, I totally agree with you.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why are we so focused on the money?
I don't know, and I've made an observation as I've gotten older. The people that I personally know, and I don't know a lot, that are actually wealthy, they were the people that didn't even care about wealth. Like, they just happened to arrive there because they were passionate about something and made a living out of it.
I cannot tell you how many times I've heard that story.
And they don't really care about that, about wealth. That's what, and like us, we're like, God, can you just let me know what it feels like one time to have like some money,
Right.
All right,
it's all perspective.
It is.
And then I think about my sweet little grandmother and her granddaughter in Nicaragua, who our whole family has tried to help them out from time to time, send them a little money here and there. And to them, $100 is $1,000 to us.
Right.
It's all perspective.
So one thing that I really liked about this book was he told lots of stories, and he told lots of stories about people that he knew. And what's really cool is he would tell stories about people he knew, but they would be, they wouldn't be the most flattering stories. They wasn't putting, it'd be things they did that was stupid, or things that, that just wasn't very
flattering.
So I like that because
it makes it real.
It made it real, and they were real examples of people doing things they shouldn't be doing, and I thought it kind of made it entertaining too. So what did you think about J.D. Joy? Did you think he's likable?
Yes, because I feel like he's one of us, and maybe that's why Trump picked him, because he knew a lot of your average middle-class Americans could identify with someone who's worked really hard from nothing to something. He's literally a rags to riches story. I thought he was personable, funny. I related to him, but you already know what I'm going to say. It's the profanity.
Yeah.
Clean it up, JD. Especially, JD, I know you'll never listen to this in a million years, but if you want to get the Christian vote, maybe. And, and that's also that's just a result of how he was brought up and the environment he was in. I totally get it. I'm not judging you, JD, but I'm just telling you, just everyday life, everyday language. If you know any Christians are going to be hearing you, you're going to get some brownie points if you clean up your language. So
yeah, and I just have a feeling if JD was sitting right here with us, I really believe he would say this. I think he would say, "Wow, that was clean. Like that was my
true.
clean
He
version."
probably did clean it
I
up.
think for him that he probably really did try to avoid using profanity as much as possible.
Well, and what's funny is I saw that you could watch the movie on, I don't know if it was Amazon Prime or what, and I know what it was. My husband said he was going to watch it. He said, "Do you want to watch this Hillbilly Elegy with me?" And I said, "Well, if it's anything like the book, no." I said, "The book is awesome, but the language is really bad." And he watched the movie without me, and he said, "Yeah, the language was really bad."
Okay, so that's a good disclaimer there for anyone
that
might
so
want to watch the movie.
if you're anyone if you're a Christian and you don't really want to hear God's name taken in vain or hear profanity a lot, the book is full of profanity, and apparently the movie is just as bad or worse than the book. So I would say, and it makes me sad because I want to see the movie. I just can't handle all the language.
Okay, so I personally found JD to be very highly likable, and the thing that I loved about him the most was how he would talk about the mistakes he made, and he wasn't ashamed or embarrassed to tell us. Everyone that
he's transparent.
He was very
I love
transparent.
That.
Like he would talk about, I went to an interview one time in army boots and something, and he just would tell the funniest little stories about the things he had done and like what not to do. And so some of his views, though, I got to say, really resonated with me. Some of his the way he views.
I was saying amen in my head every time he talked about government, welfare. I was like, in my head, amen, brother, amen. He was preaching to the choir with me.
So he talked about work ethic.
Yep.
Taking responsibility for your actions, not blaming everything on the government.
Yep.
People who take advantage of the welfare system.
Preach it, brother. Preach it, JD.
And so all these things, I cannot tell you how many times has our family had conversations, Joy, seriously, about people who are lazy, people who want the government to give them everything and they don't want to work. And because we were brought up, luckily, fortunately, our dad was a very hard worker, and he taught us, and our mom, and they taught us work ethic. And I feel like me, you, and our sisters all have a very good work ethic.
The worst insult you can say to me is that I'm lazy.
Yeah.
It goes all over
I cannot think of a time that any of us called in because we just didn't feel like going to work, Well, Joy's rolling her eyes. I will say this. I worked at a company. I did work at a company.
Okay, I have good attendance, but there have been days, and I know this sounds, okay, yes, I can be a snowflake. I get it. But I really need a mental health day today.
Okay.
So I'll admit, I'll be like JD. I'll be transparent here. There have been a few days that I've called in, and I'm like, I just called in sick, and it really was more mental.
I agree with you. In my head, I was going, yes, preach it. This, this is what I want to hear because I get so.
Yes, when he talked about the people going through the grocery store on the day they get paid and how they had the steaks and all the really high dollar meat and things like that, and he couldn't afford it. That's the things that I get bugged about. That's the things that. You see kids on welfare and they've got a nicer phone than you. They've got nicer this than you or whatever.
Yes.
But then I know if I saw their home life, I'd probably regret just saying what I just said.
I remember being on my lunch hour when I used to work in Fort Smith, and I would be in a hurry and I'd be so stressed, and I knew I had to get back to work because I had my desk was piled high, and there would be somebody in front of me with their WIC or whatever, which is part of our welfare program, and I would remember thinking. My tax dollars are paying for you. And I guess I need to not get off on this tangent right now, but it's very irritating.
If they're not able to work, I get it. Just we know people.
Yeah, we need to say that.
And love people that are on disability and they can't work and they have to have help. That's what it's for. I totally get it. We are referring to the people who are able-bodied people who purposely do not work and just sit and take handouts from the government.
Yeah, and
these are the people that we have an issue with.
And even during COVID, I got so mad because they would give these checks to people who had small businesses who suffer from COVID. Joy, I cannot tell you how many people I personally heard took checks admitting they didn't need them, but took them because it was free money.
Yeah,
and
I know a few people who had a chance to go to a job, but they wouldn't because they were making more by staying home and getting the check from the government.
Right. I remember you telling me that story.
Times, yeah.
Okay, and then one just little side note I want to mention, something that I had in common with him. He said he visited England because it was his childhood dream.
Yes.
Well, go JD. So that I want to go to England too. And I kept thinking when I heard his name for the first time, J.D. Vance, I kept thinking, why does that sound familiar to me? And the reason I finally put two and two together, so he is distantly related to a famous J.D. Vance who was part of the Hatfield and McCoy feud.
I forgot about that. I was going to ask you because we did a podcast on a book over the Hatfields and McCoys.
Called Blood Feud.
Yes, Blood Feud. And J.D. Vance was one of the key figures that started
He was one of the ones that instigated the whole affair, if I remember correctly, and he was a bad dude.
No wonder his name sounded familiar to us.
Yes, he was a bad dude, and he does reference him in his book that he is distantly related to him.
Yes, I had forgotten
about
that.
And I thought that was interesting because toward the end of the book in Blood Feud, they do mention that the Hatfields and McCoys, I don't remember which one it was, they had a bunch of people who went into politics down the line. So it's kind of part of their heritage. That is interesting. Politics. We probably need to try to close up here because this is running a little long. But do you think Trump was smart in picking him as a running mate?
So I think he was smart in that he's rags to riches story. He can identify with the working class, middle class, working class people. He can show how hard work can pay off. I heard this, I'm not coming up with this. Apparently, they think he can reach those voters in the Rust Belt states because that's where he grew up and everything. But I think maybe and I hate DEI. I don't agree with that. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. You always should pick someone for the position based on their merit, not on if their race or color or sex, whatever. I'm against that. But if Trump truly wanted to get more women's votes, Tulsi Gabbard, I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's just very smart, very articulate. I think she's a woman of integrity. I feel like he maybe could have gotten, and I'm not a political analyst at all, but man, I just feel like he might have gotten a lot more women's votes by having her. But I mean, I'm happy with this pick.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, after reading the book, because I kept thinking, wonder why he picked this guy. I've never heard of him. Who is he?
Oh, and he served in the Marines, so that's gonna reach out to all the military people.
Yeah.
So that was smart.
So after I read the book, okay, the things that stood out to me, which is pretty obvious, was he obviously has a good work ethic. He knows what it's like to not have money.
Yes.
He can relate to the working poor. He can relate to the middle class, and now he can relate to all classes. Let's just say that.
He can.
And I love how he has the ability just to tell things like it is. He doesn't mince words, but he never sounded preachy to me.
Right.
So yes, I thought he's a pretty good pick. Now I just hope people actually take the time to get to know who he is. I'm not saying I'm endorsing him or I'm not. I'm just saying that from his book, because that's what we're going to discuss this book.
And another thing, I think maybe, who knows, maybe Trump picked him because Usha, her family are immigrants from India,
Yeah,
and so there you go. You got legal immigrants, so that's going to be bonus points. With a different religion. I think she's...
Yeah, I have to say, once I saw his wife, I thought that might be another reason why he picked him.
Reason.
Yeah, and they both graduated law school.
Yes, and she's another example of immigrants coming over, making it, doing well. Yeah, as soon as I saw her too, I thought, oh, I bet she played a part too in his choice.
Possibly,
would be my guess.
Okay, so there were some really good quotes from the book, and this is how we're going to close the podcast. Is I just want to read a few of his quotes. Won't you go ahead if you want to read that first quote?
Okay, yeah, this was really good. We buy giant TVs and iPads. Our children wear nice clothes thanks to high-interest credit cards and payday loans. We purchase homes we don't need, refinance them for more spending money, and declare bankruptcy, often leaving them full of garbage in our wake. Thrift is inimical to our being. We spend to pretend that we're upper class. And when the dust clears, when bankruptcy hits or a family member bails us out of our stupidity, there's nothing left over. Nothing for the kids' college tuition, no investment to grow our wealth, no rainy day fund if someone loses her job.
Yeah, and I really could relate to that because I know a lot of people who have that mentality of thinking.
I do too, and I get so aggravated when I see people who don't have a lot of money making really foolish choices with their money or spending with abandon. I'm like, this is why. And like our dad used to say, what got you there will keep you there, talking about money. Yeah. And it's true.
And it's true that so many people, even people you and I know, they spend money because they want to put off a certain
keep up with the Joneses.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, look, we go on vacation here, and we have.
They want to have a certain image, whether they have the money to live that lifestyle or not. They're going to live that lifestyle.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So the next quote, I thought this was really good too. Social mobility isn't just about money and economics. It's about a lifestyle change. The wealthy and the powerful aren't just wealthy and powerful. They follow a different set of norms and mores. When you go from working class to professional class, almost everything about your old life becomes unfashionable at best or unhealthy at worst. At no time was this more obvious than the first and last time I took a Yale friend to Cracker Barrel. In my youth, it was the height of fine dining at my grandma's and my favorite restaurant. With Yale friends, it was a greasy public health crisis.
Okay, this one's
all right, so Joy and I, we can talk about this one all day.
Oh, yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Cracker Barrel is like a family-style restaurant chain, and they have a little...
It's kind of known for country cooking.
Yes, like mashed potatoes and gravy and chicken fried
steak. Yes, anything
comfort food, southern
comfort food, and
biscuits and gravy.
And they're all. It's a chain restaurant, and there's a gift shop when you walk in, and
which is awesome.
It's awesome. And yes, and when you're eating, you're surrounded by old timey things you might see in a cabin.
Yeah, like an old railroad lantern or an old spinning wheel. Or
You want to feel like you're sitting at grandma's table. That's kind of what they're.
So why I'm laughing is because when I think where's a nice place we can go eat, like take our mom for her birthday, the first place I thought of was Cracker Barrel.
Yes.
To me, Cracker Barrel's pretty nice.
Yes, and he said that he thought of it as fine dining growing up. Well, I was just laughing when I read that because to this day, Cracker Barrel is one of my favorite restaurants.
And now that I think about it, I love the little store. They have old timey candy and. Oh, they always have really cool knickknacks, and now I'm thinking, I bet wealthy people look at it and go, "Oh, look at all that crap," So
but when he said that his friend from Yale was like, it was like a greasy health crisis.
Yes,
and I never thought about it. So
it is interesting to think of how we look through that lens. Our everyday lens is just through this not having a lot of money lens, and how different life must be looking through this. Wealthy
I will
lens.
say, when you watch movies or anything and they're depicting someone who's wealthy or rich, they do eat very differently than from what you and I eat. They're eating tofu and they're eating salads and they're eating.
I eat salads every day.
Well, I'm just saying though, like that's their lifestyle.
Healthy. It's definitely. I feel like but I don't know. There has been definitely an awakening. I don't know if that's the right word, but people are much more aware of healthy eating now than they were in the past. So I think there's not nearly there's not as big of a line drawn now as there used to be. But yeah, I agree at one point wealthy people probably ate a lot more different. But these days I feel like people are much more health conscious about how they eat. I know we are.
But wasn't that interesting to you how things that he used to take for granted, now he looks at them completely different, like where he eats, the restaurants he chooses?
Yes, and he talked about not feeling like he belonged. I'm like, well, oh my gosh, if he felt like he didn't belong to Yale, and now is he going to, when he's in these running for vice president of the United States, I wonder if he feels worthy of that. Probably has bouts of doubt.
So far, everything we've talked about has been pretty positive. I'm just curious, was there anything about the book that you didn't like?
Just the language. Once again, I know that just comes with the territory, and that's just how he was raised. And if you're going to tell an authentic story and be transparent, you're not going to mince words, and you're not going to just try to sound like somebody you're not. So I get it. I can't think of anything that I really did not like. To me, the whole book was interesting.
The only thing I didn't like about it was he did cite a lot of studies and statistics.
That's true, but I felt like he needed those to support his arguments.
Yes, and I understand why he did it. That's what I was getting ready to say. I understand why he did it. He wanted to support his argument, so he would say, 10 years ago there was a study and they proved that middle class do this or don't do this, and so I totally got it, but I did tend to find the facts and the figures kind of boring. All right, so he loved his grandma more than anything in the book, and he called her Mama.
Yes, right, and he said I'm almost sure he said you're only going to hear that around the Appalachian area, and I disagree because here we are in Arkansas, and we know many people that call their grandparents Mama and Papa.
Yes,
maybe they moved here from Kentucky or wherever.
Okay, so with that being said, how many Mamas do you give this book?
All right, I am going to give this book 4 Mamas.
Okay.
And you?
Honestly, the book was okay. It was I enjoyed it, but I'm just going to give it 3.5 Mamas.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't. It just wasn't one of the better books that I've read. Now, I still liked it, but yeah, 3.5 Mamas.
Now that I think about it, I might give it 3.5 Mamas because I know the power of persuasion. Because I was thinking of some of the last few books that I've given a 4. It's a great book. I'm not saying it's a bad book, but as far as keeping my interest and me really, really getting into it,
this is not a book I'll probably read again,
right?
But I'm glad I read it,
right?
Yeah.
So but I would read another book by him if from his journey from
where that one left
off to maybe after here in a few years, whatever happens, I would definitely read a second memoir.
Yeah.
Okay, so 3.5 Mamas.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time on Twin Talk.